Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another political episode. So on this wonderful January day, we are uncovering a tragic story, the very first death, a political death of 2025, and that is coming from Vermont. Vermont governor, not the current governor, but former governor, long time ago. And that man is Thomas P. Salmon, a Democrat, has passed away at the old age of 92. This longtime Democrat has had a pretty big political career throughout the state of Vermont, during a time where Vermont was, for the most part, a red state. When he was governor, Vermont hasn't voted for a Democrat since 1964, which that record was broke by Bill Clinton, who ultimately became the first Democrat to carry the state of Vermont since LBJ. It sounds pretty crazy. But now, of course, that Vermont would not return to the Republican Party ever again in the presidential race. So, as a result, the state of Vermont is pretty much a red state for now. And not a red state. What am I talking about? A blue state permanently. And we still fathom, why is Vermont such a state that's so deep dark blue? And here's the thing, we don't realize it, but Vermont has always been a socially liberal state. It did vote Republican. I mean, we got to remember, Vermont has been a state fundamentally of left-wing abolitionists, and they were, of course, part of the Republican Party when it was mainly left-wing, and when it began to center itself, they still remained Republican, even when the state, it became against the New Deal and more of these progressive platforms. The majority of the state, although supported the New Deal, they supported the Republican Party because they were Republicans. It was a part of who they are. But now, as the Republican the party becomes more conservative during the Reagan era and onward, the state abandoned the Republican Party, and it's now the most leading liberal state in the said Democratic Party. So this is, of course, pretty interesting analysis, as we're going to go over, but let's start off with reviewing the electoral history of Democrat governor of the state of Vermont, Thomas P. Salmon. And, of course, he is a native Ohioan. And what brought him to Vermont, out of all places? I don't know. He did win a upset victory in 1972. This upset comes from the fact that Vermont, obviously, was a very red state back then. Excuse me. I'm trying to open something, but yeah. Very red state. That honestly, people thought Richard Nixon would bring the Republican nominee to victory pretty easily in the said state of Vermont. That obviously was not the case. And as a result, trying to figure out where his electoral history was. Early life, career, obviously, Salmon became the town council of Rockingham, Vermont, and he served until 1972. From 1963 to 1965, he served as a judge of the Bellows Falls Municipal Court. And from District 13 to 1 for 1966, from 1967 to 1968, and from 1969 to 1971. During his last term, he was House Minority Leader. In 1970, he was the unsuccessful Democratic nominee for Vermont Attorney General. And we can even look at that. Hopefully, they do have a page on that. 1970 in Vermont, you'll see. And that's just it. While Vermont was a reliably Republican state in presidential elections in the 20th century, Vermont was more moderate. It voted for, of course, statewide candidates down ballot. So taking a look here, you'll clearly see that the Attorney General's race, we'll go ahead and look down. So we'll see. Okay, they don't have a page, but you'll see he was elected. I just wish they have a page, but they unfortunately do not have a page on his 1970 Attorney General's race. And all we need to know is he did win that Attorney General's race. Actually, he didn't. He ran an unsuccessful campaign for the Vermont Attorney General's race. 2 years later, he would throw his bid to governor in 1972. You'll see that is where he won an upset. You'll see his opponent, Luther F. Hackett, was supposed to win this race pretty easily. And what ended up happening? Luther F. Hackett didn't win the race. He loses to what was supposed to be the one that he would defeat, Thomas P. Salmon, who was the Attorney General. People thought, yes, Nixon was going to bring Hackett to victory. That wasn't the case. You'll see Hackett won the counties that are formerly obviously, I want to believe this is Essex. He also carried this county right here, Caledonia County, whatever it's called. This county right here, Orange County. But, of course, Salmon carried counties everywhere else, and mainly the West, where it's very, very, very liberal. As you know, there's Montpelier, which keeps it liberal, along with Burlington, Vermont. And I want to believe, yes, Bernie Sanders ran in this election, and he was from the Liberty Union, and the Liberty Union is very left-wing. Socialism, anti-capitalism, environmentalism. It still exists today, and it was founded 2 years before this election. So Thomas P. Salmon wins the election. However, he'll have to run again in 2 years. Like I like to say, Salmon, of course, in the state of Vermont, you can clearly see in Vermont, you are required, the governor, you have 2-term limits, 2 terms. You are allowed to serve 2 terms and not 2 terms. What am I thinking? 2 years in each term. Excuse me, I'm blundering out again. 2 years per term. That means although that policy may change in the present day, Vermont is in New Hampshire are the only states today that have that policy. Governor Thomas P. Salmon wins re-election very easily, although it wasn't, 56.5%. It was a sweeping victory compared to Martha Abbott doing way better than Bernie Sanders, believe it or not, when it came to her third-party Liberty Union run. 56.5%. Only failing to pick up this county right in the middle. That county is the county, we can actually pick on, this is a totally different election, but I just want to see, Lamoille County, and that has been actually, interestingly enough, it barely went to Mr. Hackett, but it didn't go for Salmon. Out of every county, I think this would be the number 1 county to flip to his direction, but ultimately Salmon didn't win. He won Caledonia, Essex, Orange, all those other counties that he didn't win in 2 years ago, and now he actually failed to win in Lamoille County, which is the only county that Mr. Kennedy, Walter L. Kennedy, ultimately picked up at the end of the day. You'll see municipal results very different. Here you'll see only 1 town voted in favor for, actually click here, let's see if there's a town map. No, there isn't. But only 1 town voted for Salmon in this said election cycle. Now, there are no terms limits in Vermont. Governor Salmon could easily run for re-election. He doesn't, and because he didn't run for re-election, this led to the Republicans retaking the governor's mansion in Montpelier. You'll see Richard Snelling, the Republican nominee, probably more liberal, ended up winning that election. You'll see very red. It's just northwest. That's very more liberal up here. Bernie Sanders' Liberty Union campaign is getting more momentum, but ultimately Republicans won this race pretty easily. And besides, you can make the argument that Sanders was taken away from Stella B. Hackle, which was the Democrat nominee. But ultimately, that race correlated with the 1976 election, which Republicans ended up winning that election. The incumbent governor, Robert Stafford, easily, well, I won't say easily, he had a challenge. The governor of Vermont gave a pretty good challenge. It was not enough to beat Stafford, and ultimately Stafford wins. He impressively won the Montpelier area, very liberal, even back then. That was, of course, the case. I want to, Lamoille? I want to say, it's probably here or here. I don't know. Where's Montpelier? Montpelier, Vermont. That is right here in this said county. That is the county, okay. Which, Washington County. It's in Washington County, Vermont. And that county barely went in favor for Governor Stafford. Senator Stafford. Excuse me. I'm blundering a lot in this video. But Thomas Salmon picks 3 counties. He wins 3 counties. Those 3 counties, that is Franklin. I want to believe this is Franklin. I've made plenty of blunders through... Oh, no, this is Orleans. I keep saying it's Franklin, but it's Orleans. Orleans County, along with... We'll continue to click on these counties. This one, Windham County and Bennington County. Those 2 counties, very liberal in the South. Everywhere else, though, it is in favor for Republican Robert Stafford. Huge victory in regards to him. Ultimately, after his failed Senate run, I would say the former governor in his later career, he, as you can clearly see, after leaving office, Salmon assumed resumed practiced law in 1991. Salmon was appointed interim president of the University of Vermont and served as the university's permanent president from 1993 to 1998. Not really permanent. You served barely over there. Upon retiring from the UVM, he practiced law in Bellows Falls, Vermont. He also served as chairman of the board of Green Mountain Power from 1983 to 2002. And, of course, it was 2 days ago, but Salmon died in Brattleboro, Vermont on January 14, 2025, at the very old age at 92. And we pay, of course, respect to him and his family. But what do you guys think in regards to the governor, former governor, Thomas Salmon? Very left-wing, I'm presuming, coming from this Vermont socialist, Democrat-friendly sort of state. But what are your guys' thoughts? Let me know down below. And as always, I'll see you all in the next political episode.